SquareX. You might previously remember me from the Pentester Academy and SecurityTube.net days. Okay, so a very common way by which organizations get attacked today is when a bad actor ends up sending malicious documents which actually have malicious macros, which end up downloading, executing, other payloads and causing a bunch of damage. So here is a news article which I just read on Bleeping Computer, and at the bottom over here, the Lunar attack chain seems to start with spear phishing emails that carry Word files with malicious macros. Now, why is this such a big pain when it comes to enterprises, even though there are so many security products available today? So the tricky part is when it comes to malicious Word documents, broadly, when you look at enterprise products today, there are really two categories. One is where the only way out is for you to do a complete block. And as you can imagine, that gets in the way of productivity. And the other option is where you go ahead and apply, convert to PDF or one of those transformations, which unfortunately make it very difficult for your employees to get their work done. Because imagine that you're receiving an Excel document which was found suspicious, and maybe it isn't really malicious, but unfortunately now your team can no longer work with it. So let's actually take a look at an example to kind of understand this better. Okay, so let's actually pick this and let's go to a profile. Typically this is an email address which is opening up in Google Apps, and as you can see, this clearly sees attachment scanning has been done, and there are a bunch of Excel attachments and one Word attachment which has been sent. This is an external sender. And maybe, this email inbox is of an HR person who unfortunately has to look at many of these documents. Now, this looks absolutely okay because, Gmail says so. Let's download it. And let's try to run this through VirusTotal and see what happens. And lo and behold, you can actually see this was detected to be malicious, and if you go through the details, you will see that this is an Office document, or rather an Excel document with a malicious macro which ends up downloading and executing a payload. Now, why was Google's email scanners not able to pick this up? Well, this and many others, including Apple Outlook, unfortunately do not go ahead and do very rigorous email scanning as one would believe to be so. And we did an expose with Forbes a month back where we ended up showing many of these inadequacies. Okay, so what we've established is, unfortunately, many of these email antivirus scanners do not work well, and employees end up getting these malicious documents. Now, I'm not going to show you in this demo, but most of you red teamers already know that malicious documents unfortunately do not get detected very well by endpoint security solutions today as well. And if any of you are curious to see a demo against what you believe is best of breed, feel free to be in touch with me. Okay, so now how can SquareX help your organization? So let's go back. Now, welcome to SquareX Enterprise. This is really where what we can do is create a policy, and this policy, just to show you, will allow your organization to isolate all documents containing macros. So how does this work? You create a policy. I've applied this to a group, in this case customer support, and in the policy I've mentioned that if the file scanner detects that there is a VBA macro, which basically means this contains a macro when it comes to Office documents, or it contains an XLM macro, which is the older version of Office macros, then go ahead and isolate this specific file, which is open it up in a disposable viewer in the cloud. Okay, so let's go back. Now what I'm going to do is open up a couple of email accounts in the customer support team and see how this works. So we have SquareX installed, and this is something you can deploy in your organization. The moment you open up an email, and this is, Emma opening up an email, you can immediately see that we can do in-browser detection and immediately tell you there are a couple of malicious documents here. Now, what's next? Well, at this point in time, we haven't created a policy to outright block those documents. What we have done is to isolate them. So here is what ends up happening. When you download a document which contains a macro, we automatically give you an option to open this up in a disposable file viewer. And this is really an isolated viewer in the cloud so that the file never ends up dropping onto the user system. Now, similarly, you just click on it, click open in file viewer, and even open this in Office 365. Now, what does this do? This goes ahead and sends the document to an isolated Office 365 SharePoint account, and within which now you can go about viewing this document. So this document is 100% malicious, but your team is still able to view it right now without any damage, any chance of any damage happening. Of course, if there is a document, which doesn't contain a macro, then you get an option to download this just as usual. Let's actually go ahead and look at this from the vantage point of a couple of users. But hold on, let me actually first take you to see how detection looks like at this point. So you can immediately see that one of the isolate policies was hit for Emma, and we can see that in our detection. There's a bunch of information available here, including going ahead and being able to download the document as an artifact. So what we found is a lot of security tools unfortunately don't give this option, and all you know is something was blocked. Now, your security team is intelligent, right? It wants to know more, and that is really where this is an option that we provide. You can even open it up if this is a known hash from VirusTotal. Now, the big question arises, how does the attack happen? And this is really where a lot of times security solutions unfortunately aren't able to do attack attribution. This is something SquareX does really well. So the moment you click on more details, it immediately shows you an attack graph when it comes to hitting this isolation policy. And you can immediately see that, this was the Gmail address from which your organization was attacked, and it was sent to Emma, who went ahead to, google.com, and that's really where the mail got opened. And here was the Excel file, which was eventually isolated. Now, this is an example of how we are able to tell your security team exactly what happened, rather than just showing you something downloaded or something got isolated. Now, what if this bad actor was actually targeting multiple people in your organization? How does this end up changing? So of course, you can enable auto remediation, in which case he'd not be able to target people once we're able to detect an attack. But just humor me for this one, where we go ahead and simulate the same attack and show how you can uncover trends within the organization. So I'm going to go back. Now we were in Emma's login. Let's actually go to author, and he receives a similar file. Let's go ahead, do the download. Similarly, you can open it up in Save File Viewer. And let's actually go now to Evelyn as well, who's one of the other customer support executives. And she's received a similar email. So again, as you can see, even when Evelyn tries to download this, the only option is within a safe viewer in SquareX's cloud. So no harm can be done across all of these users. But now when we go back and look at detections, you immediately see that we've been able to detect the same attack across other users. So here we see the attack on Evelyn. We can go back, and Arthur is basically exactly similar. So this way, of course, you're knowing different people are attacked. But here's the best part. We could now go back to any of these. Let's go back to Emma, which is where we started. And now you can click on related attacks. And lo and behold, we immediately are able to blow this up and actually tell you what's happened. So now we are immediately letting you know that the bad actor, Tim Davis, actually targeted 3 people in your organization, all via email, as you can clearly see, and you can look at any of these graphs to look at the subject of the email and a bunch of other things. And from the email, all of these users ended up trying to download a document, and based upon the policy that we have currently, which is go ahead, isolate any Office document which contains a macro, we can immediately see there are a bunch of isolate events which have happened. We are also providing IOCs for the file which you can use for auto remediation, which we'll talk about in another video. And of course, a case where there was no macro and just a data file, we did allow you to download at that point, right? So you have full visibility on what has been happening, with this specific attacker and how he's been targeting your organization. Now, you can of course go in here, go ahead, add, remove many of these items so that you can look at the graph as you want. You can even rewind so you can know where the attack originally started, what really happened, giving you a bunch of other views on what's going on. Now, the best part is, along with all of this, we have our AI Copilot, which, if you notice, in real time has immediately told you that 3 users received a potentially malicious email from the same sender containing a link to download files. SquareX blocked 3 files containing macros and identified one as having malicious content, right? And there's a bunch of other things in here as well, where we give you IOCs and whatnot. And in one of the later videos, I will show you how to turn on auto remediation, where policies can be sent out to the rest of the organization. So if any of them try to open up a webmail, with Tim Davis, that'll automatically get blocked. We'll save attack vision, which is an extremely powerful next generation visualization mechanism, for a later video. All right, fantastic. So hope you enjoyed this demo. Let me know what you think. And by the way, we are already piloting SquareX Enterprise with select organizations. If you're interested, if you want to go ahead and protect your users while they are online from web attacks, please be in touch and we will try to set you up for a pilot.